Hi, I'm Mike Carpenter, Executive Director of Tennesseans for Quality Early Education. I want to thank you for joining us today and being a part of our online event. Today you're going to learn about a powerful new study on the economic impact of childcare in the state of Tennessee. But first, a few housekeeping items. First of all, I want to let you know that the duration of this webinar is approximately 30 minutes long, that our audience will be muted so that we can hear the presenters. And if you have a question during the webinar, you can use the chat bubble in the upper left-hand corner of the screen. Type your question in there, submit it to us, and we'll respond within 24 hours. Or if you prefer, you can email me directly at mike.carpenter@tqee.org. Our report, the presentation that you'll see today, will be available on our website after this webinar, and as well as the technical report and the regional reports, which include Nashville, Memphis, Chattanooga, Knoxville, rural Southwest Tennessee, and Tri-Cities. So with that, I'll turn it over to my colleagues who are going to co-present today to introduce themselves.
Hello, everyone. I'm Dave Miller with First Tennessee Bank and First Horizon. I'm the president of our region here in East Tennessee and also a proud director of TQEE. Appreciate everybody joining us.
Hello, this is Miles Burdine. I'm with the Kingsport Chamber, and I'm also a board member for Tennesseans for Quality Early Education.
Greetings, I'm Beverly Robertson, president and CEO of the Greater Memphis Chamber.
Hello, I'm Clive Belfield. I'm a professor of economics at the City University of New York and an economist at the Center for Benefit Cost Studies at Columbia University.
Thanks, Clive. Sorry, I almost spoke over you. This is Blair Taylor. I'm president of Memphis Tomorrow and executive chair of Tennesseans for Quality Early Education. And thank you, everybody. Really pleased to have you all joining us today. Before we move any further, I'd like to take a few minutes just to thank all of our 23 sponsors for this report, representing the business community across the state who've helped make this possible. They are Ayers Foundation, Ballad Health, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Tennessee, the Bristol Chamber, Chattanooga Chamber, Decatur County Chamber, East Tennessee Children's Hospital, First Tennessee First Horizon Bank, Frist Foundation, Greater Memphis Chamber, the Hyde Family Foundation, Johnson City Chamber, Kingsport Chamber, Knoxville Chamber, Memphis Tomorrow, Nashville Chamber, Perry County Chamber, ENC Financial Services, SunTrust Bank, Tennessee Business Roundtable, Tennessee Chamber, and the Urban Child Institute. So many, many thanks to all of you for your generous support and your engagement with us on this project. I'd also like to acknowledge a few other organizations without whom we could not have accomplished this report. Ready Nation is a national business organization with a chapter here in Tennessee headed by Diane Halstead, whom many of you in our business community know. And with Ready Nation's permission and encouragement, we conducted a Tennessee version of a national study that they actually published earlier this year. And we engaged their vendors, the researcher Zogby Analytics, and of course the economist Dr. Clive Belfield. So a big, big thank you to Diane and the Ready Nation team. And related to that Ready Nation study would not have been possible without their generous sponsor, the Pritzker Children's Initiative. And so thank you, Pritzker. And finally, I'd be remiss not to mention that Chad Bonner with Zogby Analytics far exceeded our expectations by doubling the number of surveys that we had originally commissioned. So we ended up with a very, very compellingly large and highly valid survey sample. So thank you, Chad and Zogby. All right, now on to a quick look at the agenda and objectives for today's webinar. Next up is going to be Clive Belfield, who will provide a top-line overview of the study and its findings. And from there, we'll hear from kind of some business sector reactions to the study from Dave and Beverly and Miles. Then I'll add a few thoughts to theirs and address where to from here. And finally, Mike will wrap us up. And our objectives in publishing this report are twofold. The first is to create awareness of the overwhelming evidence that Tennessee does in fact have a child care crisis and that the stakes are high for families, for businesses, and for our economy. Second, we really would like to catalyze creative problem solving by state policymakers and the private sector to fix it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Clive Belfield. Clive?
Thank you, Blair. So this is just a brief overview of the economic impacts of insufficient childcare on Tennessee. So as Blair mentioned, this was a very large survey. This is comparable to national surveys in terms of its number of respondents of working parents in Tennessee, across Tennessee. The survey's 2,330 working parents of children under 5 years old. So these are working parents with young children from all economic sectors across the state. The sample is broadly representative of the population and the working population. The goal was to collect evidence on how childcare problems affected parents' work and to use this evidence to build an economic model to calculate the monetary consequences of insufficient childcare for families, businesses, and the state. I can only give a brief overview here. There are many more statistics and greater explanation in the accompanying report that we have. What those parents revealed was that most working parents reported three main challenges. These are finding childcare that was high quality, affordable, and accessible. Accessible childcare means it's in a convenient location. The time slots are good slots for people who need to work, Monday through Friday, through the summers. Accessible is an important part of childcare for children. As you see on the left-hand side, 2/3 had problems with affordability and access, half had trouble finding suitable quality, and then the results of this are that there's quite an impact on Tennessee's working parents. 1/3 of them, as you can see there in the box, had hours reduced or pay reduced, changed to part-time. Almost 1/3 had to quit a job, were fired or demoted, and more than 1/3 turned down a new job offer or promotion. So those are significant impacts on parents. And we dug a little deeper into this to find out more patterns across families. So when we look at variation, we can see there's variation across younger parents, rural residents, and single parents. But across the board, about 1/3 are relying on formal center-based care, pre-K, or Head Start. And the remaining 2/3 of working parents are using a patchwork of childcare options. Families, some are using relatives, parents, some types of childcare options. Across all parent groups, though, we see only a small percentage rely on the Tennessee Child Care Payment Assistance Plan, 13% across all working parents. And only a modest proportion, 14%, are able to access employer-provided financial support for their child care. These statistics apply across all the groups that we look at: younger parents, rural residents, and single parents. We break this down into three parts when we look at insufficient childcare. The first one is time off work. So we ask parents about time off work due to childcare problems within the past 3 months. And as you can see here, a large majority of working parents reported some disruption to their work time. 2/3 reported being late for work, half reported missing a full day of work, and 43% report being distracted at work, having issues related to childcare. So that's the first part of the insufficient childcare impacts. The second part is to say, when you're at work, what does insufficient childcare do to your productivity and performance? When we ask parents about this, we see 1/3 report having their pay or hours reduced or changed to part-time. Almost 1/4 report having some issues with being reprimanded at work because childcare is interfering with work. And then 18%, almost 1 in 5, reported that inadequate childcare had caused a significant disruption to their productivity, so much so that they'd either been let go, given a less desirable work opportunity, or being demoted. And then the third component of the childcare crisis is career advancement. What does insufficient childcare do over the longer term to workers' careers? And we asked parents about this, And here too, parents reported significant problems. A quarter reported that they had had to quit their job to take care of their children. A third reported turning down opportunities for further education and training, so their long-term career was put at risk. And then almost 40% report that they turned down a new job offer or a promotion. So these hits to the careers of working parents affect their earnings today, but they also affect their future career opportunities, and they constrain the productivity of Tennessee businesses for which they are working or were working. So we use that information to build a model of the Tennessee economy and the Tennessee labor market to calculate the burden of inadequate childcare. We consider not just the direct burden in terms of lost earnings, as you can see on the left-hand side, but also the burden to businesses from lost revenue and the burden to taxpayers from less tax revenue as a result of lower incomes and lower spending. So the impacts affect working parents, businesses, and the taxpayers. We use economic data for Tennessee, across Tennessee, the Tennessee tax code and the Tennessee business sector to calculate economic burdens per working parent. And the top box shows the calculations per year for each working parent with a child under age 5. So we've used the survey responses to build an economic model to calculate these economic losses. And you can see they're pretty significant, over $4,000 per working parent, almost $1,500 for each business, and over $1,000 for taxpayers in terms of lost federal and state taxes. That's per year. The bottom box shows this as the child is aged from 0 to 5, so the entire childhood years when families face inadequate childcare. And these numbers are even larger, more than $1,600 for working parents, almost $3,000 for businesses, and over $3,000 for taxpayers. So here we have the annual economic burdens by region. It was mentioned earlier that in addition to the statewide study, we also conducted a study of 6 regions within Tennessee, listed here on the table, where the survey oversampled to ensure a solid margin of error for responses by working parents. The economic burdens depend on local wages. They also depend on local employment patterns and local availability of childcare. So to provide a more localized picture, we re-estimated the economic model for each of the 6 regions, and detailed results for each are available in the report. But we can see that families in each region face large economic burdens from inadequate childcare. Variations reflect the respective level of earnings in each region, as well as the variations in impacts on working families, and of course, the variation in inadequate childcare that the families face in each region. So if you look at the top column on the bottom part of the table, you can see these are in millions, so you can see the total economic impact by region, with the top one, $1.34 billion being the full Tennessee state economic impact. Aggregate economic burdens reflect the size of the working parent population in each region, multiplied by the total family, business, and taxpayer burden for each region. The final summary here, what does the burden of inadequate childcare mean in aggregate for the state? Added up across all working parents, it means losses, as we've said, of over $1.3 billion annually. At $850 million annually, much of this loss is borne by the working parents themselves. Less time at work, lower productivity, slower career pathways. Businesses also bear a significant impact of $270 million annually, and taxpayers are also adversely impacted at $220 million per year in losses. So overall, in the report, we identify a substantial economic burden when families are unable to find high quality, affordable, and accessible childcare in Tennessee. Thank you.
Thank you, Clive. Great presentation, and it's the data just make it very clear that there's a lot more at stake than I think most people in our state understand. And now we'll turn to our business leader panelists to hear some of their responses to the study's findings, beginning with Dave Miller. Dave, what are your thoughts?
Thanks, Blair. Pretty powerful and to some extent sobering information. For us at First Tennessee and First Horizon, our culture and being a great place to work is foundational. It's, I think, the biggest reason we've been successful for 155 years as a company. So that's what allows us to attract and retain great employees, and our great employees are in turn what drives the great service we provide to our clients. So, couldn't be more proud of our organization and our culture and the awards we've won for not only being a great place to work. And if you look at the screen, it shows you some of those that we've won that show we're a great place to work for working parents. But as good as I think we are, we're always asking ourselves, what can we do to get better? And so I think the information that Clive shared with us today that's in this report tells us that we in our company can do better, and all employees in the state of Tennessee, or employers in the state of Tennessee rather, can do better. And I would tell you, I think it's clear to me that this has both near-term and longer-term implications. If you think about the near term, the data in this study tells us that childcare is clearly adversely impacting not only workforce productivity, but it's driving up our costs to do business as we have to address employee turnover and hiring. If I think about our company at First Horizon, we've got 5,500 employees. The majority of those would be here in Tennessee. And when I talk to our workforce, particularly those in our financial centers, I know childcare is a huge issue for many of them. It's an issue for our people, therefore, so it becomes an issue for us as an employer. But from a bigger perspective, I talk to clients all the time. And without question, the number one issue I hear when I talk to our business clients in East Tennessee is the challenge that they face attracting and retaining qualified talent. It's particularly exacerbated in this environment where unemployment is so low. But if you look at the data in the study, it's so clear that access to quality childcare impacts people's ability to work. It impacts, therefore, employers, and so it's a big deal in the near term. But it's also, I would argue, a very big deal over the longer term. And there's a fascinating study that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce did not too long ago. It's called The Workforce of Today, Workforce of Tomorrow, the Business Case for High Quality Childcare. And it makes a number of powerful points, but one of them is about how much brain development occurs in all of us as human beings under the age of 5. And how important the quality of the early learning environment that our kids are in impacts their ability to not only develop their brains, but also prepare them for school and success later in life. And clearly, if 300,000 kids in the state of Tennessee are in childcare, the quality of that learning environment for them is a big determinant of the brain development that they experience and how successful they'll be in school, and ultimately determines the quality of the workforce, I would argue, here in our state. So, as a banker, I get excited about economics. I get excited about return on investment. And when I look at the body of research that we're presenting here today, I see tremendous return on investment potential, not only in the near term for the workforce of today, but longer term for the state of Tennessee and all of our communities for the workforce of tomorrow, by making sure that working families and kids have access to affordable and really good quality learning environments in childcare.
Wow, thank you, Dave. Great insights, great points. Thank you for that. Great comments. Beverly, I'm turning to you and piggybacking on Dave's point about investing in our workforce of today and tomorrow. I know for you and the Memphis Chamber, workforce development is a top priority for you during this first year as you head up the Memphis Chamber, and you all have an upcoming conference, in fact, next month, Upskill 901. Tell us a little bit about your reactions to the childcare study.
Well, thank you so much, Blair. Clearly, the Greater Memphis Chamber is really excited to have a body of data that validates what we've always thought about the importance and the need for high quality child care. And clearly, our employers here in the Memphis marketplace regularly talk about workforce recruitment. We talk about workforce retention. It is indeed a major issue. And when you consider the fact that our unemployment rate in Memphis is about 3.9%, probably the lowest that it's been in the last 50 years, we do understand the need to have young people trained early on so that they can get in a career pipeline. They need the skills that will help them to be able to retain and secure a job when we look at what's needed today as well as in the future. And that's why I'm pleased to see the report come to its fruition. The data is very revealing, and it's fascinating to see that no matter where you are, from Memphis to Mountain City, Tennessee, parents of young children are struggling with the same issue. They have child care problems. We're proud to be a report. We're proud to see the report and be a co-sponsor of it because we understand that child care impacts economic mobility for our families and economic results for our businesses. Childcare can also be a great opportunity for small business entrepreneurs, but we do know that that business model is often a struggle. Blair, we are ready to work hand in hand with our private sector and government colleagues across the state of Tennessee to make childcare work for our Memphis region and for the entire state.
Awesome. Thank you, Beverly. Great points, and ready to work hand in hand with you. So Miles, you've been a Chamber of Commerce CEO, I believe, just celebrated your 25th anniversary at the Kingsport Chamber. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. And still enjoy coming to work every day.
That's great. And I also should mention that you're a retired U.S. Marine Corps colonel. So you bring a variety of perspectives, former military, seasoned economic community development expert, an employer in the Tri-Cities area. So share us a little bit about your perspective on this report.
Well, thank you, Blair, and thank you for calling me seasoned. That's a nice way of saying I've been around a long time. So, Beverly, Dave, really enjoyed your remarks, and you're spot on. And I'm going to actually echo a few of the things that you all said. It was a natural fit for the Kingsport Chamber to be a co-sponsor for this child care economic impact report. For economic and community development professionals, workforce development is absolutely the #1 issue across the state of Tennessee and actually across America. I think many of us with employees who are also parents have intuitively understood the impact of child care on our workforce, productivity, and businesses. But there's nothing like having the data to make something clear, and this report accomplishes exactly that. Clive, you did a great job of presenting it, and look forward to digging into the details even more. It's clearly time for all of us in the world of business, economic, and workforce development to turn our attention to the matter of child care. As I mentioned earlier, I love my job. I look forward to coming to work every day, and I work with amazing people, volunteers, staff, government officials who genuinely want to improve our city, our region, and our state. I'm especially proud of the Chamber employees who dedicate themselves every day to improving our community. They do this not only by being great employees, by being great citizens, and yes, great parents in many cases. It just so happens that of our 30 employees here at the Kingsport Chamber, 2 of them are expecting babies right now. And they're soon going to be needing high quality, affordable, easily accessible childcare. Now, we had a 3rd employee who recently chose not to return back to work, partially because of the expense of quality childcare. And another one last year who had her 3rd child chose not to come back, but we convinced her that she was so valuable and she's now working part-time. But a lot of it had to do with availability of quality, affordable childcare. Now, we have a policy here at the Kingsport Chamber of bring your baby to work that lasts as long as the baby starts to crawl. And we encourage young mothers to bring their babies to work. And it works well, but eventually when the baby starts crawling, they do need help with finding childcare. So figuring out solutions to the childcare challenge is a very real and present issue for us. I'm in conversations right now with local school district officials who we share offices with, and TQEE. I want to say thank you to Tennessee Quality Early Education, who's begun helping me navigate what kind of solutions are out there, both from a public policy perspective as well as just good old-fashioned business startup and entrepreneurship perspective. So we're hoping to come up with a model that perhaps can be used across the state of Tennessee. Still a lot of work to be done there, but we are very hopeful. Because childcare is an industry sector, we need to figure out how to grow it successfully. Thank you, Blair. Back to you.
Miles, thank you. You bring up a great point as we look ahead to solutions. There's a role for the business sector and a role for public policy and government in this. And as for government, it's not necessarily about spending more money. To begin with, we need to utilize and frankly better use what's currently available to us. And for example, there are federal funds, TANF and the Child Care Development Fund in particular, that are available to Tennessee families through our Department of Human Services. And actually, much of this has been left untapped and underutilized for at least the past 5 years. And literally hundreds of millions of dollars have been left on the table. But many of those hundreds of millions continue to be available to us. Where government resources are concerned, there are also child care tax credits. There are workforce development resources available through the Department of Labor and Workforce Development. There's small business development resources available through the Department of Economic and Community Development and the Tennessee Small Business Development Center network. There are a number of government departments which frankly, if deployed to prioritize this issue and to work together and sort of de-silo and think creatively, I think they could do, and we could do a lot more to solve it. And where the private sector is concerned, there's a major opportunity for entrepreneurship and small business development in the sector. As Miles mentioned, you bring your baby to work day. There are a lot of things that businesses are doing more and more to support the parents of young children in their workforces, from on-site childcare like HCA tends to sponsor. That's sort of the Cadillac, and not every company can find a return on investment with that, but certainly more and more are doing that. Home Depot, Patagonia. But we've also, there's also companies are also offering benefits like dependent care flex spending accounts. And there are a host of others out there that, such as what Miles mentioned. There's also an increasing number of new technologies springing up, and more needed, that can improve the child care business model and the overall experience for parents and children and teachers and owners and quality monitors from our state. And in fact, TQE has put together a report series which speaks to a number of these opportunities for solutions that are perhaps part of the pieces of the puzzle. So more information can be found about that at our website at tqee.org. So our intention for this report is to serve as a call to action for collaborative and creative problem solving by state government and the private sector. And to that end, we're asking Governor Lee to appoint a task force, bringing great minds from the private sector and the public sector together to solve the crisis. So the practical and the economic consequences of insufficient childcare are enormous, as we've seen from Clive's report and his great work and data and analysis that he's provided. And in fact, the economic impact of $1.34 billion annually that was revealed in this study is actually just the tip of the iceberg, as Dave Miller referenced earlier. A massive body of research has documented very impressive returns on investment for high quality early education programs. And that ROI comes from longer term positive impacts on improved academic achievement, employment and health, and reduced criminal activity and dependence on government assistance. So affordable, high quality, accessible childcare really is the dark horse economic issue of our time. Fix it, and our economy will reap the benefits of a triple bottom line, including workforce productivity, economic mobility for families, and closing the skills gap for tomorrow's workforce. So let's mobilize Tennessee's business ingenuity and creative public policy to crack the code for great childcare. Mike, back to you.
Thanks, Blair. I want to thank all of you for joining us today for this. This concludes our webinar. I want to thank one more time our sponsors, our very generous sponsors. This would not have been possible without them. And I want to remind you that if you didn't have a chance to use the chat function to ask a question, you can still email those comments or those questions to me at mike.carpenter@tqee.org. You see it there on the screen. And also, we want you to feel free to share. In fact, we would encourage you to share our report on social media, and you can use the hashtag #FixTheChildCareCrisisTN right there on your screen. Once again, thanks so much for joining us, and have a great day.